Happy New Year, everyone. The numbers are in for 2021 for Hidden Dunes. I'm Craig Duran with the Duran Group over at Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. I want to go through some of the numbers, specifically some data. I'm going to kind of geek out a little bit on the numbers just because I really want you to see the how dramatic, how intense this market is. And I want you, before I show you all this, I'm on like the sixth or seventh one of these I've done this morning. So I'm really digging into the numbers of the whole market, every single individual building. And I just want people to remember 2008. And I think we've been a little spoiled recently, really since April or May of last year. We're probably a good year and a half into a really, really intense, dramatic real estate market, especially in the condo market. And just remember for a second what you were doing in 2008. If you were involved in real estate at all, or if you had friends or family that were, remember some of the stories that were being told back then, some of the experiences that people went through. And just remember that as you're making decisions in this market, because markets like this, at some point, I think a lot of things are cyclical. I would certainly am not suggesting that we're in for any kind of crash. I think there's too much equity in the real estate markets right now for that. But markets can't stay on overdrive forever. I don't think. Maybe at some point they will, but so far in history, they haven't. So let's get through some of the numbers. Keep that in mind, because I'm going to point out a few reasons why. Looking at some of the numbers in Hidden Dunes, it was a phenomenal year in Hidden Dunes, like it was in a lot of other markets across the beach. We had, this is a story you'll hear, is a similar story to what we're seeing across the rest of the beach, of course. We had 31% fewer new condos available to purchase in Hidden Dunes than we did the year before, meaning buyers just had less to choose from. In 2020, there were 19 units that ended up being for sale at one point. There were only 13 choices for people in Hidden Dunes. I know Hidden Dunes isn't a big complex, but still, there were only 13 choices for people to even choose from. And Hidden Dunes really stands out in a lot of ways. 33% more contracts were written last year. We had 12 contracts written last year, where the year before we had 9. And I know 9 to 12 doesn't seem like a big number, but 33% more sales really is. And really the number of actual closings on units was up 50%. We were up 63% in volume just because of the appreciation in the amount of units for sale. The average sales price was up 9%. I think that only tells part of the story. We're going to get into that in just a minute, because if the average sales price for this year was $790,000, that is not what units are selling for today. We're going to get into that in a minute. Let me explain this to you again, also for those of you who haven't seen it. What you're looking at here is a chart for the overall condo market. The red line represents the number of units for sale, and this just goes along with what we just looked at. This is the beginning of the pandemic right here. And if you were a buyer and decided right in April or May, like so many buyers did, that you wanted a condo in Panama City Beach, month over month over month that went by, you had fewer and fewer and fewer choices of condos to purchase, which is really a lot of the stress the buyers were feeling. This is why they were offering very aggressive, lots of bidding wars, multiple offer situations very quickly when a unit would come up for sale, because they knew that the choices almost felt like they were going away. April, May, June, all the way through August was just the opposite. The market softened a little bit. Buyers did have more choices throughout the summer. Not surprising if you think about it, because in high season, the units that are rental units are so heavily rented, it's very difficult for a buyer to get in and really see every unit they want to consider, because they're all rented. So many buyers just give up looking that time of year. Plenty of buyers are vacationing and enjoying life like everybody else. And look at what happened in the off season. That trend stopped. Buyers came back to the market. All of a sudden, we're on a downward trend on supply yet again. Months of inventory. Remember, for those of you who don't understand or have heard my spiel on months of inventory, remember, traditionally, months of inventory in real estate is a good number for us to figure out how to assess where market may be going. Traditionally, 5 or 6 months of inventory would represent a neutral market because it would take 5 or 6 months to work through the whole process. Seller calls a real estate agent, he gets marketing going, shows a condo, negotiates, gets a contract, works through closing, gets to closing. Traditionally, that would take 5 or 6 months to work through that in normal times. We can do that, I think, a little faster nowadays because our marketing doesn't take so long to get going. I would contend where 4 or 5 months of inventory is a normal neutral market. If we're less than that, that means things are happening faster. There's more demand from buyers. If this whole process is taking 1 month or 2 months or 3 months, then we're very much in seller market territory. The longer we're in that seller market territory, that's when you see prices move up. And just the opposite when things go the other way, which is why we really want to watch this number. For the overall Gulfront market, when we softened late last year, we only softened to 2.53 months of inventory. That's not that soft. That's still very much a healthy seller's market. We're now back down to 1.15 months of inventory. That's incredibly hot. It's very much a seller's market. The longer we stay in that it's more of the same story for buyers. So it's going to be interesting to watch. Hidden Dunes, there's just not that many units, so the chart will be a lot more volatile, of course. Months of inventory, though, is still, for the months that we can pick up activity, is still very, very much a seller's market. Maybe a little bit slower than the overall, but that's just because the units are a little more expensive. This is just a different version of why. Same thing was happening. Like on August, when we were the most soft last year, here was our inventory level. We had more supply, but we were writing fewer contracts. We were down 15%, 18%, 17% in August on the number of contracts we were writing. But look at what happened in December. We wrote 35% more, 8% less, fewer, 32% more, 8% more, and 62% more new contracts in the month of December, just a couple of days ago. And look at what's done to supply again. Supply has gone from being down 36% to down 50%. Buyers all of a sudden again have 50% fewer choices than they did the same time last year, and we're writing 62% more new contracts. There's still serious demand in the market. And think about why this would be happening. It's incredible to me that people still associate buying and selling with beach season. But it's just the opposite. When high season, especially Memorial Day to Labor Day, it's so busy at the beach, it's hard to get in and see anything. And if you really seriously consider spending $900,000 on a condo, you're going to want to see everything that's available. If you can't do that, you end up waiting. So we see more transactions happening early in the year and later in the year. That's happening now. That's why 62% more new contracts were written in the last week of December. People got through the holidays and they're already thinking about, especially if they're going to do rentals and especially if they're experienced, they're already thinking about getting a unit under contract and closed so that they can talk to their rental manager, so they can make any changes they want to make, so they can start taking bookings, because March 1 is the beginning of the heavy revenue season. So if you're thinking about selling in 2022, you've got to decide, okay, am I going to target taking advantage of the spring market or the fall market? Most likely. If you're thinking about taking advantage of the spring market, get on it now. This is happening now. You don't have a lot of competition as a seller, which is great. You can push pricing right now, which is great. You better have strategies on how to push pricing. We have those, but this is the time of year to push pricing. You don't have any competition and there's all kinds of demand. If you're thinking about selling in the fall, two things. Watch the market to make sure we're not going to have that year where finally we get inventory levels up, demand goes down, and the market shifts. But if you are going to start in the fall, start earlier than you think. Don't wait until September, October. That's too late. Start the process right in the middle of summer. July, talk to your real estate agent. Get the process going so that you're ready to be on the market August-ish, late July, August, because even though you may be booked and rented and can't be seen, there are people who are planning trips into our area and they want to start evaluating what they're thinking about looking at when they get here. So you want to start this process, or start to thinking about this process earlier than what it feels like. It's a big takeaway I would have for you guys in this one. So let's look at numbers specifically and get away from those averages, because look at what's happened. This is since December 1st, closing at 860,000, but we have a unit that's asking 905 and is under contract. And we have a unit asking 925 that's getting a ton of activity and has had multiple offers. So if you're thinking about selling in Hidden Dunes, again, decide if you're going to be spring or fall. If there's fall, you probably have a little more risk. If something happened in the stock market that put pressure on people's portfolios, or if interest rates continue to rise, things like that will affect demand. But for now, for the short term, for the next few months, we anticipate it's going to be a really, really good buying season for people who are thinking about buying and getting units to be able to use for beach season. It's happening now. It's happening already. So if you're thinking about taking advantage of being priced in the 9 somethings in Hidden Dunes, a couple things. Now's the time to work on getting your marketing going, and don't be afraid to press the pricing. I don't think there's anything wrong. In fact, this is the one we're working on. We're asking $925, and think about that. That's $65,000, almost 10% over where this one's closed. And we've already had offers approaching 900,000. So this is the time of year, and this is the time in this kind of market to be pressing pricing. This is the kind of market, let me say that a different way. This is the kind of market that sellers can be aggressive and can push things. You have to watch it carefully, because a lot of people subscribe to an 18-year cycle in real estate. If that's the case, we're close to being there. And at some point, something would have to give, and you're going to have a lot of people take profits, which would add supply. And if demand wanes, that could put a little pressure on pricing. None of us are anticipating a major crash in real estate. There's too much equity in the market. So we wouldn't think that you would have any kind of massive swing in pricing. We might at some point see a slight correction on pricing, which slight corrections in markets can be 5, 8, 10%, which can still be a lot of money on paper if you own in Hidden Dunes. However, we don't see anything in at least in the first half of the year, first quarter at least, that causes any concern. There's good demand. It's a good time to be an owner, especially if you're thinking about selling. Make sure, if you are, again, push your pricing, have strategies on being able to close over where appraised values will be. Sometimes there's some challenges in accepting a contract that's here when values are here. But if you know how to do that and know how to work through that, then you can really take advantage of a market where prices we just haven't seen. Hope you guys found this helpful. I know it was a lot of data, but I think there's a lot to take in here. And especially, again, remember, markets like this don't come around every year. Markets like this don't last for years on end. We're a good year and a half into this one, and it'll be interesting to see how it goes the rest of 2022. We will keep you updated. If you're not already on our e-alert system, remember, most of you are, but if you're not, text me to 850-527-0221. I'll set you up. It's very easy. We'll set you up on a system that will send you an e-alert, like it sounds, via email. Anytime a unit comes up for sales, changes prices, or goes under contract, changes price, or closes, sells inside of Hidden Dunes, or really any other property you want. It's very accurate. It comes from our MLS system directly. So you get the actual legitimate sales price and sales date along with any other activity you're trying to track. So we can set it up to where you get that instantly. So anytime something happens, you'll know about it. If you don't want that much email, depending on the building you're looking at, we can do it, a week at a time, a month at a time. There's no charge or obligation for this. It's really good, accurate information. So I like to get that out there for anybody that wants it. So again, Happy New Year. Thank you very much for watching. We'll be back next week to see how this market continues to move. Thanks again.